Hello everyone. Welcome to the first session of second lesson from Flamingo Class 12 English through distance mode. The chapter Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood is divided into two parts, continuing the author's first hand experience with poverty and tradition prevailing in some parts of India. The first part describes the plight of poor rag pickers of the Simapuri near Delhi who are migrated from Dhaka, Bangladesh. The second part describes the miserable conditions of the bangle makers of Firozabad. The name of the story is Lost Spring because it describes the pitiable condition of poor children who have been forced to miss the joy of childhood due to the socio-economic conditions that prevails in this man-made world. At the age of below 14, they have to work under hazardous circumstances. They, because of these man made situations, can't enjoy their childhood naturally. Hence, they have lost the gist of their childhood. They are denied the opportunity of schooling too. Anis Jung gives voice to eliminate child labor by educating the children and to enforce the laws against child labor by the government strictly through these stories. The author Anis Jung was born at Roorkela, India in 1964. She is an Indian woman author, journalist and columnist. Her most noted work, Unveiling India 1987, was a detailed chronicle of the lives of women in India. Her book, Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood, was published in 2005 and focuses on children from deprived backgrounds. The two stories have three characters. The first story, the main character is Sahib. He is a rag picker from Simapuri, Delhi. He has simple dreams. He believes in promises made to him. In the second story, the main character is Mukesh. He is a boy belonging to a family of bangle makers in Firozabad. He dreams of breaking away from tradition and becoming a motor mechanic. And the third character is the narrator, Anis Jung, who is herself the author. She is a social worker who empathizes with the slum dwellers and honestly portrays their pitiable lives. The story opens up with a question asked by narrator to the Sahib. And the question is, why do you do this? With this question, the author tells that she encounters with Sahib and his friends every morning when he is scrounging for gold. Scrounging means looking for. And gold does not mean here the real gold, but in fact, whatever valuable things they found in the garbage dumps of narrator's neighborhood. The author also tells us here who is Sahib and where from he comes. Sahib is from Dhaka, Bangladesh, and his family has migrated due to the storms in 1971 in Bangladesh, which swept away their fields and homes. After providing this background, author mentions Sahib's reply for the question. And you know, the question was, why do you do this? Which was asked in the beginning. Now, after this, providing this background, author mentions the reply of Sahib, and the Sahib's reply is, I have nothing else to do. So, author says, go to school. But quickly she realizes the hollowness of this advice. She then half jokingly says that will he come if she starts a school? And surprisingly, Sahib says yes. This is how the author reveals the background of Sahib in the opening 2-3 paragraphs of the story. After months for observing to them there, one day she asked him his name. The name is Sahib-e-Alam, which means Lord of Universe. Here she thinks that whether Sahib knows the meaning of his name, and he does not know the meaning of his name too. And it is a paradox that the boy having the name as Lord of Universe is roaming on the street with his friends scrounging for gold. After showing this paradoxical situation, author uncovers one more aspect of bitter reality of rag pickers, and that is they are still barefoot. The author curiously asks why they don't wear slippers. She gets different replies from them. One boy replies that his mother does not bring them down from the shelf. Another boy replies that he wants a pair of shoes, so he is not wearing slippers. With this interaction with Sahib's friends, the author contemplates about the perpetual state of poverty in India. She has moved across the country and has seen many children walking barefoot. Surprisingly, she received one explanation, that it is a tradition and not lack of the money. Another wonders if this is just an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. To realize the pain of being barefoot to the readers, the author tells an incident of a poor priest. The young boy of the priest used to pray every day in the temple to get a pair of shoes. 30 years later, the author visited the town of Udupi where the boy belongs. After 30 years, there was a new priest living in the backyard of the temple. The narrator noticed that the young boy of the priest was wearing a pair of shoes. Here, a writer was reminded of the boy who prayed that he should have a pair of shoes. Author contemplates that the goddess had granted his prayer, as most of the young boys there now have shoes to wear. As against this, the rag pickers in the author's neighborhood still remain barefoot. Here, she has once again depicted the pain of deprived section in India. It seems that she is pointing out why goddess heard the prayer of one section but not the other. At the same time, this story was published in 2005. It means now nearly after 15 years. It is now 20 to 2020. What changes have occurred in the life of rag pickers specifically? The children, their life, their schooling. Are they having pair of shoes or slippers right now too? They are still living in the perpetual state of poverty. As story moves, the author's acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers take her to Simapuri. Here she offers detailed explanation of the area where these rag pickers live. Simapuri is a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it metaphorically. It means, though it is the part of Delhi, it lacks the resources and facilities which the rich people living in Delhi are having. In this sense, Simapuri is far away from Delhi, though it is the part of Delhi itself. The place is home to 10,000 other barefoot rag pickers like Sahib. They are all Bangladeshi refugees who came here back in 1971. They live in very poor conditions in mud structures with roofs of tin and tarpaulin. The place has no running water facility and no drainage. They all have been living here for past 30 years. They have no such identity of theirs, yet they have valid ration cards. Even they don't bother about their identity if at the end of the day they don't sleep with empty stomachs. Author observes that they prefer to live here in these insufficient facilities rather than in the fields at home which give them no grain. The children born here are partners in survival, and survival in Simapuri means rag picking. Here, author explains that rag picking has become an art for over the years for them. The garbage is gold to these rag pickers. It is their only support and means of income. Sahib tells the author that sometimes he finds a rupee, even 10 rupees note. In this way, here author has given detailed description of the life of rag pickers. In next paragraph, author represents one more encounter with Sahib. It is winter morning and Sahib standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis. Sahib seems to be fascinated by the game. He tells the author that sometimes the guard let him in and then he can ride the swing inside. The author notices there that the Sahib is wearing tennis shoes. Sahib tells that someone gave them to him, but that the fact was that some rich boy discarded the shoes because there was a hole in one of them. But this fact does not bother Sahib. For Sahib, who has walked his whole life barefoot, it is like a dream come true. In next few paras, author presents one more encounter with Sahib. One morning, the author sees Sahib on his way to milk booth. He is carrying a steel canister. Sahib informs the author that now he works at the tea stall and is paid 800 rupees and all his meals. However, author feels that Sahib is not happy. His face has lost its carefree look. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag. The bag has his but the canister belongs to the owner of the tea stall. Sahib is no longer his own master. With this note, story ends. The last encounter tells that though the situation had changed for Sahib, his suffering has no end. It is the age where he should attend the school, but rather his situation forces him to work more than his capacity. The childhood is the spring of life. That spring is lost for Sahib.